Apparently, companies are firing Gen Z at rapid rates, but how is this happening when they are the most tech-savvy and educated generation thus far?
A new survey has found 60% of US bosses have fired their Gen Z workers, complaining that the younger generation want to leave early, start late, and expected to be paid a fortune.
Is this a failure of the workforce, or is Gen Z actually doing something wrong? Let's take a look at that together. What's up, YouTube? It's tinysey, and welcome to my digital garden. I previously created a video saying Gen Z is quitting corporate for minimum wage. And in this video, I gave a little bit of information on what Gen Z looks for in a job. And I think it'd be good to do a quick overview of what this is, just so that we get an understanding of who Gen Z is when it comes to the workplace. So, greater flexibility. Gen Z employees believe that they are more than their jobs, and they want their employers to know the same. They like a flexible work schedule, and they don't want to just be tied down to their company slaving away for them. They want to have some sort of adventure when it comes to work and to change things up. They value a work-life balance as well. They want to make sure that they are able to get rid of those stresses and those anxieties that makes it unable for them to work. They also focus on ethics and social awareness of the company that they're going to work for. So they aren't going to work for a company that's known to have bad ethics and bad values. But we also see that there is a lack of engagement at work that leads to lower retention. So the likelihood of Gen Z and young millennials being not engaged at work is somewhat higher than that of other senior counterparts. Employee engagement refers to the strength of an employee's mental and emotional commitment to their job, teams, and their employers. And according to Gallup, 54% of them are not engaged, which is slightly more than previous generations. They're less inclined to settle for a less than ideal employer, since they're always looking for better opportunities. So it looks like Gen Z looks out for themselves, their authenticity, and what's actually going to make them happy. And if the company's not fulfilling that, they're ready to hop. We've seen it uncovered that oftentimes these companies that boast a family-like environment are actually just extremely toxic, and Gen Z sees right through it, and they are ready to move to the next place if it's not fulfilling their needs. And another thing that Gen Z is looking for is mental health awareness. They want to make sure that there's access to mental health services, enhanced knowledge of mental health well-being, empathetic leadership, and a culture of wellness. These are the things that Gen Z is really valuing when it comes to finding a workplace, finding a place that they're gonna want to settle down in. And we're finding that this is just not meshing too well with the current work culture that we have. Now we get into the news that has broke about Gen Z. According to the New York Post, they said, here's why companies are rapidly firing Gen Z employees. Most companies have fired Gen Z workers just months after hiring them, and several business owners said they're hesitant to bring on recent college graduates due to concerns about their work ethic, communication skills, and readiness to do the job, according to a new survey. And close to 1,000 business leaders participated in the Intelligent.com survey. Here we have it. 1 in 6 companies are hesitant to hire recent college graduates. And this is very concerning to hear. So they found 6 important things that we're going to dive into in this video to figure out whether these are actual issues or if companies are just resistant to change. And we're going to find that it's probably a mix of both. 3 in 4 companies report issues with recent grad hires. 94% of companies report hiring recent college graduates. And among these companies, only 25% state that all recent college graduates hires worked out well. 62 mentioned that some of them worked out well. I think that's to be expected because, again, they're fresh out of college. You're going to have to train them. You're going to have to kind of be there for the growing pain. Companies are getting even more impatient due to the recession and just constraint on money. They don't really have the time for someone that comes in and is not extremely competent straight off the bat. 14% report that only a few or none of the hires were successful. So that's not too bad. Only 14%. The most frequent cited reason for why these hires didn't work out were a lack of motivation or initiative at 50%, and poor communication skills at 39%, and a lack of professionalism at 46%. Other factors included poor communication skills, 39, which they already said, so I don't know why they're repeating that, and struggles with feedback at 38, and inadequate problem-solving abilities at 34%. And although they gave some reasons, it's a bit vague. So let's try to do the best with what we were given. So them saying a lack of motivation or initiative. This is something that we've been hearing when they say Gen Z is lazy. Gen Z doesn't know how to be professional. Gen Z doesn't have the same work ethic that they had back in the day. Them not having motivation or initiative depends on how we're looking at it. I think we're all motivated to have a job and to work. And sometimes when they say initiative, it's code word for you working above and beyond. Something that's been mentioned is that job hopping is becoming more popular among Gen Z. And this is a method to get promoted without working at one company for a long time, which was a more traditional way to get promoted. So they're not there putting in 110%. They're there for the time that they're there. They're doing what they have to do. And when they feel like they want to make more money, they hop to the next job. That's why they might not be perceived as having motivation or initiative. They also see poor communication skills as a reason, and this is cited so many places. I was looking on Reddit pages, and this is something that they believe Gen Z has a problem with. They use slang, they say things like talks, or they just have their own abbreviations and they aren't using the corporate speak. To me, the corporate speak is something that you learn. And everyone begins to sound like this.
Hey team, how's it going? Happy Friday. Yeah, thanks for hopping up. Yeah, does anyone have anything? Great. We wait on anyone or Jason? Sure, makes sense. New baby, but well, we gonna dive right in, right? Can everyone see my screen?
Communication skills could also just mean how you're communicating with your team. Every company has a different communication culture. With Gen Z being tech savvy, it's cited that they prefer communicating over these tech applications. And sometimes in these older companies, in these more traditional spaces, they like in person. They like you to come in person for everything. And this might be something Gen Z is not used to, especially for a generation that may have been in college over COVID and they aren't really used to that face-to-face communication. This is something that they're going to have to work on and gain the skills to be able to have better communication in a way that these traditional companies may prefer. We also see professionalism being cited as a problem. And I also think that this is a vague term, like they're not professional. Okay, but in what ways? I need real examples because sometimes I feel like younger people are picked on for things like how they dress. And sometimes the younger generations, they show up and their authenticity can sometimes be perceived as unprofessional.
I am tired of Gen Z being the only people to catch strays about unprofessionalism in the workplace because listen, this is not an age-specific epidemic. I'm not going to share or tag the video, but a girl made a TikTok about going to an interview. She was in Texas and she was wearing a skirt. And as predicted, a lot of people are calling it unprofessional. It kind of is unprofessional in my opinion as well. However, seeing one person post about not really wearing very professional, serious clothing to an interview does not mean that it is exclusively a Gen Z problem. Is it professional when most men ignore me on job sites? No. And let me tell you, they're not young. Was it professional when the man with 2 kids that was interviewing me for my first internship vaped on camera? No. And is it professional when the older men hit on the young women in a corporate office? No.
So in this video, we see the outfit that apparently prevented her from getting the job.
And then they decided to reschedule the interview with me for tomorrow. But before they rescheduled, the lady was like, would you like to come back? Like, go change and then come back? And I was like, no. And these are the shorts. Let me turn to the side for y'all. These are the shorts.
Personally, I think that the top, the cardigan that she's wearing is professional. The shorts probably are fringing on unprofessional, but it definitely depends on where she's worked before this company. Every employee handbook has different rules on how you dress, so it really depends on what the company deems as professional. They can learn these sorts of things, and I don't think it warrants them being fired, but if it has to do with things like maybe using your phone on the job or cursing or actually doing things that are just inappropriate in the workplace, actually even cursing, people curse all the time. I'm trying to think of what it can possibly be that's so unprofessional that it would warrant firing Gen Z, because if you see some of these people in the workplace that are older, they curse, they yell, they get angry, they cough, they sneeze super loudly, like they do all these sorts of things that are apparently fine. So it's hard. They're not being specific on what is unprofessional about Gen Z that everyone else isn't also doing. The last two things were struggling with feedback and inadequate problem solving abilities. I have again seen this with multiple ages, multiple generations. A lot of people have a hard time with feedback. Like if you see a CEO in a meeting get pushback and you see how they react, it's not pretty. Oftentimes they don't handle it that well. So it doesn't feel like a Gen Z thing. But on the other hand, problem solving skills is something that you should be good at to get the job. If you hired someone and then find out they have bad problem solving skills, I think it's on the job to provide some sort of training and mentorship to someone that's fresh out of college. It's not something you necessarily fire them for. Let's go on to the next thing that they're saying. 6 in 10 companies had to fire a recent college graduate hire this year. A majority of companies report that they had to place at least some of these underperforming hires on performance improvement plans, and 60% report some were eventually fired. It sounds like they had something in place to try to help them get better, but for 60% of them to eventually end up getting fired is absolutely crazy. So let's see if they give us some more information. Many recent college graduates may struggle with entering the workforce for the first time, as it can be a huge contrast from what they are used to throughout their education journey. They're often unprepared for a less structured environment, workplace cultural dynamics, and the expectation of autonomous work. Although they may have some theoretical knowledge from college, they often lack the practical, real-world experience and soft skills required to succeed in the work environment. Okay, I'm going to stop there because that's why they're entry level. That's why they are new. That's why they're new hires. And if that's being cited as something that you fire someone for because they don't have practical experience, I think this highlights a problem that we are seeing happen in the workforce lately. We are seeing the disappearance of entry level jobs. So let's do a quick detour to explore this issue. Why call jobs entry level if they aren't actually entry level? So long are the days where entry level jobs are actually entry level. Sometimes they're asking for 3 to 5 years. This is 100% a fact. When I was looking for entry level jobs, you could barely find any. They were barely there. They were asking for 2 to 3 years of experience, sometimes 1 to 2 years of experience. But again, if you're just coming out of college, how do you have this experience? And sometimes they even said internships do not count. And so it's getting to this point where a lot of these companies do not want to put up entry-level positions. And if they do, they're so strict on what that entry level actually looks like. It's not the typical college grad. It's someone with 2 to 3 years. They're not entry level. They are early career. But now you're in competition with these people. People that are overqualified are applying for entry level jobs. So when you see, oh, they lack the real world skills and practical experience, all I'm hearing is there's no such thing as entry level anymore, because when did we start expecting for people to have the skills and the practical experience straight out of college? That's something that you learn on the job. And here they say companies have an equal responsibility to prepare recent graduates for their particular workplace and give them the best chance to succeed. And by understanding the challenges of Gen Z workers, companies can take a more proactive approach by implementing formal employee onboarding programs that clearly outline company culture and expectations. Pairing recent grads with mentors in the company can also pay huge dividends, as it can provide Gen Z workers with the guidance, feedback, and support for them to succeed. And I completely agree with this. This is something that companies should be providing, but I know it's not something every company has the ability to do. More than half of hiring managers say recent grads are unprepared for the workforce. They have a whole list, a whole chart of a lot of things. They say they're entitled at number 1, which we do hear people saying Gen Z is entitled. And again, I think that attitude that they have, that they want to make sure the company is good for them. They're vetting the company. They're making sure that they're kind of aligned with their ethics. And if they don't, they're ready to hop. And so I see how it could come off as entitled, but to me, it's just looking out for yourself and making sure you're happy first and foremost. It kind of takes that power away from the company, and all they can really say is you're entitled because why are you expecting things, or why are you having standards? Lack of work ethic, didn't respond well to feedback, or don't respond well to feedback, unprepared for the workforce. That is at the fault of colleges. And we are seeing this being said more and more. There's a problem that we have with colleges where they're just not preparing students for the real world. The US education system isn't giving students what employers need. And we're seeing that employers are relying on that traditional 4-year education, which they've been doing for quite a while. But apparently this system is no longer working reliably. 90% reported that their college education experience did not provide them with the skills needed to perform their first post-degree job. And additionally, more than half of these college graduates have not applied to an entry-level job in their field because they felt underqualified. Nearly half felt underqualified because they did not have all the skills listed in that job description. And if colleges are not preparing the younger generation to enter the workforce, then this is something that the colleges need to fix. Make sure that you are getting people actually prepared for a job, because then here they are getting fired and it's really not fully their fault. Then we see cost more to train. Yeah, that's a fact, but you have to train them. Someone has to train them. Someone has to take on Gen Z and train them. This isn't something society can just push to the side and go, oh, well, they're not trained. They cost more money to train. Okay, someone has to do it. They already paid for college, and the least you can do is finish the job. The last one is lack technological skills. This is something that you learn on the job. College only teaches you so much, and a lot of it is theoretical in nature. These are the things that the company can teach them, and they can learn relatively quickly on the job, because now it's seeming like not only is Gen Z not invested in companies, but companies aren't invested in employees anymore. So it's kind of mutual, but they're hating on Gen Z for it, but they're doing the same thing. 19% find they often don't use appropriate language for work. I swear to God, they just want everyone to sound like SpongeBob in that one episode.
Hi, SpongeBob.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Just came by to get a drink.
Wonderful weather we're having.
It sure is.
Let people have a little bit of individuality. Late to meetings, okay, that's a problem, but again, not unique to Gen Z, not unique at all to Gen Z. 17% believe they're often too difficult to manage. 15% report they often hand assignments in late. Again, not unique to Gen Z. This is just like general things. I don't think that this is a reason that Gen Z should be getting fired at rapid rates. And here we see 1 in 7 companies may not hire recent college graduates in 2025. Really crazy. The majority, at 84% of companies, do plan to hire recent college graduates in 2025, but about 5% do not, and 10% are unsure. Okay, this is good. 85% are probably going to hire recent college graduates, as they should, because again, they're the future and someone has to hire them. Someone has to give them the skills. And if society just decides to push the younger generation away because they're not perfect yet, that's just shows that society's failing and shows that we don't care to foster in the next generation. And hopefully companies have better onboarding experiences, training programs, mentorship programs, so that it's easier to hire Gen Z, because you know that we can train them up really quickly. The companies that are not planning to hire recent graduates, the main reasons include not hiring for entry-level positions, which we discussed. Entry-level is largely disappearing. There's concerns about Gen Z's preparedness for the workforce at 31%, and the high turnover rates among recent graduates, which is 31%. And yes, Gen Z is known and showing that they do hop jobs. If they don't like it, they are going to leave. And I think that's partially on the company to do better. Make sure that you are aligning with Gen Z. This is where it's going to become more important as Gen Z and millennials become the larger generation in the workforce. You have to figure out what they like and what they value in a company, and you have to adapt. You have to shift. Now I think it's interesting to look at what they said is necessary to hire Gen Z, the things that they're going to need to see in order for them to be hired. Factors that would increase hiring managers' likelihood of hiring a recent college graduate: showing initiative, positive attitude, a strong work ethic. Now this is where I'm a bit like iffy, because strong work ethic is code word for workaholic. Adaptable, open to feedback, punctual and reliable, solid technical skills, good interpersonal skills, internship experience, work appropriate social media. Now, This is a very interesting point because we are finding that unfortunately, Gen Z is getting fired because they're using their phone at work. They are posting TikToks, they're going on Instagram, and this is getting them fired. There was a viral trend that Big Lotto was hosting where you had to post a TikTok at your place of work, and someone that was working at the Waffle House for many, many years got fired because they posted this video. Only the creator got fired, and she has been working at this company for such a long time, and it was such a shock to her. But unfortunately, I saw so many stories of people saying that Gen Z has a problem with technology use on the job, posting TikToks, social media accounts. And so this is something that I do actually think is a problem. Unfortunately, you cannot post TikToks at work. You cannot be on TikTok while you are on the job. And especially if you're working in person, like, it's just a huge no-no. And I think that a lot of people have technology addiction problems. It's not just Gen Z, but since they are the most tech savvy and used to using social media, I think it's a bigger problem with this generation. And they have to realize that you can't use tech at work. You have to make sure that you are keeping that to a minimum. And again, not posting your workplace. And even if you are posting, making sure it's work appropriate. Otherwise, make sure your profile is private. It does feel like there is just some discrimination that's happening against Gen Z. Some of it feels unfair because a lot of the things they cite are not exclusive to Gen Z. But I do think that, again, there's hope for them if colleges begin to prepare the younger generation better, companies begin to have these sort of programs like onboarding programs, mentorship programs, and more training. I think that they'll be able to give Gen Z the skills that they say that they're lacking. But the fact that Gen Z is ending up getting hurt the most by a lot of these problems, it's a bit unfortunate and unfair. They have to unfortunately work harder because of it. Make sure they're getting those skills. Make sure that they're showing up in these correct ways if they want to keep their job. So although they might be a bit down on their luck right now due to the job market and just these high expectations, I think eventually their time will have to come. And so what do you guys think about this topic and just everything that's going on? I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please leave a heart emoji in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next deep dive.